We got a little time. Just continuing, finishing this chapter, and then reading about Gopkumar finally entering into Braj. Shri Gopkumar said, the statements of that best of counselors were all reasonable, and they accorded with Narada's own heart. So when the great Narada heard them, he was extremely pleased. He then spoke in reply. Sri Narada said, O Uddhava, you truly must have great affection for the residents of that land, for you have spoken your good advice to help this boy quickly achieve what he desires. You know the supreme greatness. I don't know if you want to open the window back there to, if you want to get some air, but if you're okay, I'm okay. You know the supreme greatness of that Brhad-Bhumi. You left Lord Krishna, your worshipable desire, deity, and resided there a long time. Shri Gopkumar said, Narada again looked around, beholding auspicious signs, that all-knowing sage and dear friend of the Vaishnavas addressed me joyfully. Shri Narada said, O glorious one, beloved of the hero of Braj, please know that soon your purpose will be achieved. Long ago, greatly fortunate one, I concluded that this would happen. Even when you came to Sri Vaikuntha, the Lord's abode of limitless, incomparable joy, and to his transcendental city of Ayodhya, and to this city of Dwarka, even greater than both, your heart's distress only multiplied in the most unlikely way. On Swarga and the other material planets, you remained naive, even though seeing the lotus feet of your Lord. I think all this occurred just to deepen your great love for the supreme object of your sight. Those two lotus feet of your own dearest Lord, period. How else could there be any reason for distress in this realm, or ignorance in any of those abodes of knowledge? Your naivete let you feel the piqued curiosity of a simple heart, free from agitation. Thus you enjoyed the special ecstasy of discovering Lord Achyuta on every planet. So now go quickly to the Brhad-Bhumi of Mathura district, down here on earth, which enhances the fame and splendor of the earth. Go fulfill the desire you've held for so long. There, without delay, you will surely succeed in the spiritual practice that will bring you to the brilliant world above Vaikuntha, Sri Goloka. Shri Gopkumar said, pleased by Narada's nectarian words, I was eager to go to Brhad-Bhumi, but would have perceived that within my heart I was anxious first to take permission from the Lord. And so the magnanimous Uddhava said something to me. Shriman Uddhava said, if you were going anywhere else, the proper thing would be to take permission from the Lord of the Yadavas. But that land of his is most dear to him. Not even by direct service to the Lord here in Dwarka does the love arise that firmly develops if one merely lives in the land of Braj. Therefore, I spent a long time in Brhad-Bhumi on the pretext of consoling the Lord's dear devotees who lived there with nothing left but their lives. I'm sure that my Lord already knows of your powerful desire, so he will personally bring you, his dear friend, to his dearest abode. Just keep that in mind. He will personally bring you. Shri Gopkumar said, filled with the highest ecstasy from drinking the immortal nectar of Uddhava's words, I seemed to lose consciousness. There in Dwarka, for a moment I closed my eyes. Sensing that someone had taken me elsewhere, I then opened my eyes and saw that I had been brought to this grove. Now he's talking about where he is in Vrindavan on earth. Shri Gopkumar said, following Narada's instructions here in Braj, I went to see the many places of Sri Krishna's pastimes. I sang his names most dear to me. I sang about his pastimes loudly and sweetly. I focused my mind upon them, and I attained such a state of ecstasy and became so emotional that it embarrasses me to even think of it. How then can I describe this to anyone else? It's a good thing when you become embarrassed by the ecstasy that you feel. I spent my days and nights in great distress, always crying in a pitiful voice, not knowing whether the practice I had so long been following would lead me to happiness or cast me in an ocean of distress. So sometimes you feel distressed. I couldn't tell whether I was living in the flames of a forest fire or in the supreme nectar of the clear, cool waters of Sri Jamuna. Sometimes I thought I had fallen into the hands of some great deceiver. I was always submerged in a vast ocean of misery. Not even a drop of happiness ever touched me. In such a way I lived in this grove, this most attractive ornament of Vrindavan, and one day, while immersed in an ocean of weeping, I fell unconscious. Then the crest jewel of all who are merciful appeared before me. With his own lotus hands, a hand cool like nectar, and always pleased to hold his flute, he wiped the dust from my limbs. It wasn't easy, but that greatest of cheats playfully stirred me back to consciousness by filling my nostrils with his unique heady fragrances, which I had never known before. Then seeing his lotus face, I quickly stood up. Not knowing what I was doing, my heart filling with joy, I tried to catch hold of his splendid yellow cloth. That king of charming heroes blew his flute in his own playful way and escaped behind me. Suddenly he stepped into a grove, and alas, though I ran about looking, I couldn't find him. He had disappeared. Unable to see him, I fainted and fell into the swift current of the Jamuna, and as it forcefully carried me away, I seemed to regain normal awareness and looked around. I saw myself being transported to another place along some wonderful path by a vehicle flying faster than the mind and higher than anyone could imagine. Collecting my wits, I was amazed to see I was passing through Vaikuntha Loka and going beyond. I watched with great delight as I passed the Yodhya and other realms. I arrived to a shining world above all others, Sri Goloka, which I had long aspired to reach. Everything there appeared the same as in this divine Mathura Mandala of the material world. In that original land of Mathura, I visited Mathura city. I was surprised and happy to see that it resembled the Mathura here on earth. In that original Mathura, I heard that Kamsa had taken it upon himself to arrest his father and Krishna's parents, Devaki and Vasudeva, and was ruling the kingdom. Out of fear of Kamsa, whose family and friends were enemies of the demigods, the Yadavas dared not enjoy themselves freely. Because of him, they constantly suffered all sorts of afflictions. Some of the Yadavas escaped elsewhere, and others took shelter of him. I too was afraid of Kamsa, so as soon as I finished bathing at Vishram Tirth Ghat, I heard that he left Mathura and went to glorious Vrindavan. In that realm, beyond the reach of all the demigods, planetary rules, and personal ascendants of the Supreme Lord, I saw that life was going on just as here in Aryavrata, country in Bharatvarsh on earth. The sun was rising, and the other natural events were taking place every day in the sky and on the land. The people were speaking and behaving the same way as here. I was stunned by astonishment, extreme astonishment, and immersed in an ocean of ecstatic rasa. After a few moments, I saw some men who might have been cowherds wandering in the forest with some ladies advanced in years and also wearing cowherd dress, who were picking flowers. The people there were different from anyone I had ever seen. Someone, it appeared, had stolen the wealth of their hearts and left them helplessly in love with him. Simply by feeling them, seeing them, I felt the same kind of loving affection. Trying hard, I composed myself and respectfully asked them the following questions. O good people, you are served by a happiness so vast that the greatest sages can't obtain it even in dreams. You are the reservoirs of mercy of the Lord, the husband of the goddess of fortune, mercy for which his loving devotees always pray. Please, please, look with kindness upon this most wretched person who has come to you for shelter. Tell me, who is the king of this region? Where is his residence? Which road leads there? Dear most fortunate people, please be merciful to me who am asking you with mournful cries. Please give me some answer. O faithful devotees, if even only by gesture. Oh, please hear the words of this tormented soul. Alas, you must be under the spell of that clever cheat. In this way, I moved here and there, anxiously questioning each person I met. And as I made my way forward, I came to the pasturing grounds of the cowherds. Looking around in all directions, I spotted in the distance a town adorned with the essence of all sweetness. On one side of the town, all about, I heard wonderful songs sung by cowherd women and the charming sound of churning butter and the jingling of bangles. Trying to subdue my agitated joy, I walked forward and came across a seated elderly gentleman sobbing profusely, incessantly chanting, Krishna, Krishna. With some skillful effort, I made him speak, and I heard him say in a choked voice that this town belonged to Nanda, the king of the cowherds, Sri Krishna's father. As soon as I heard those words, I fainted, overcome with delight. After a moment, that compassionate old man revived me, and I ran ahead and approached the gateway of the town and sat there in the gate. And there I saw by the hundreds of thousands and tens of millions all sorts of wonders, unseen, unheard of, unimaginable by anyone of this world. O best of Brahmins, I couldn't discern whether the people there were enjoying the highest bliss or suffering in the grip of terrible misery. I heard the gopis' songs coupled with their crying, but were they songs of the greatest contentment or the greatest sorrow, I couldn't tell. A person seeing that place might think he was in the material world, but by carefully reflecting on whatever he had seen before, he would understand he was now somewhere above all material planets, all higher non-planetary regions, and all the transcendental realms of the spiritual world. Then an elderly lady came by. I bowed down to her and asked in a plaintive voice where Sri Nandanandan was playing today. The elderly lady said, this morning that giver of life to us Brajbasis went into the dense forest to play with his cows and friends and his respected elder brother. Later at dusk he will return. All the Brajbasis are waiting on this path along the Jamuna, their eyes transfixed on the road. These trees stand with leaves erect, eagerly awaiting the chance to see him. Surely he will come along this path. Okay, you can continue on your own. Then Krishna comes. Shri Gopkumar says, as if anointed by a downpour of the purest nectar, I gazed with one-pointed attention down the path the old lady had pointed out. The sheer force of my ecstasy had frozen my thighs, but with some effort I moved on, and I heard from afar a certain sound. Mixed with the mooing of cows, it was the supremely attractive murmur of Krishna's enchanting flute. That sound, sweet melodies of sportingly played notes, diverse with musical embellishments, was like nothing ever heard in the material world. Its attractive force at once overwhelmed everyone in the cowherd village. By the power of that sound, sap flowed in a downpour from the long rows of trees. A flood of tears fell from the eyes of every embodied being in the village of the cowherds. A shower of milk rained from the breasts of all Krishna's mothers, even the elderly, and the rapid currents of the Jamuna suddenly stood still. I didn't know whether that flute gave out poison or the nectar of immortality, whether its sound was harsh, like thunder, or soft like water, hotter than blazing fire, or cooler than the moon. I couldn't tell. But that sound drove all the Brajbasis mad. All of them were utterly bewildered. Then I saw some women of Braj come out of their homes, bearing in their hands the things needed to greet Krishna with worship. Others who passed by held ornaments and offerings of food on their heads. Other ladies, ignoring everything around them, ran towards the mingled sounds of mooing and the cows and the song of the flute and the frenzy of love for Krishna. The ladies stumbled down the path. Some ladies ran with their ornaments in disarray. Some could hardly keep their belts and hair tied. Some stayed in their homes, stunned like trees, and others fell unconscious to the ground. Some of the women who had fainted, their faces wet with tears and saliva, were carried forward by their girlfriends. Other ladies, pained by the urges of their love for Krishna, went ahead, pressed on by their friends. Come, see him. The ladies, so diverse in complexion and adorned with diverse ornaments and dress, put to shame the goddess of fortune, put to shame the good fortune of the goddess of fortune herself. Swiftly the ladies ran to the bank of the Jamuna, absorbed in singing his names and pastimes. I too went forward, as if pulled by someone. Joining the throng of gopis rushing forward on all sides, I too began to run quickly. Then from a distance I saw him, his charming flute in his hand. Running quickly, he emerged from among his friends and animals and approached me, saying in a sweet voice, "Look, Sridham, here's my dear friend Sarupa, the sun who shines on the lotus of your family." Krishna was dressed for the forest. His garments, earrings, and peacock feather crown all swayed to and fro, and so did his garland of kadamba flowers. His fragrance perfumed all directions, and his beautiful lotus face blossomed with a playful smile. His lotus eyes beamed with a merciful glance, and the varied assets of his beauty decorated him in a singular way. The fingers of his lotus hands busily pushed back the locks of his hair, which flew about, adorned with the dust raised by the cows. His tender, divine feet touched the surface of the earth just to grant her the gift of supreme splendor. Playfully dancing as they moved, they attracted everyone's heart with their great eagerness to walk quickly with large steps. The effulgence of his cloud-colored body, shining with the full sweetness of youth, lit up the corners of the sky. His beauty, which captured the hearts of the ever-dear devotees of Braj, was an ocean abounding with countless excellences. He leapt forward and came close to me, compelled by the affection of his helpless devotee. I fainted in love at seeing him. He caught hold of me by the neck, and suddenly he too fell to the ground. A moment later I rewoke and carefully freed my neck from his grasp. I stood up and saw him on the ground. In a faint, moistening the dust-covered path was his tears. Some gopis came and said, "Look who has come here. What has he done? He has put our life and soul into such a state. Alas, alas, just see, people of Braj, now we are all dead. This must be some servant of the great wizard Kamsa." Lamenting like this in many ways, the gopis cried loudly in distress as they surrounded Krishna. Then from behind Krishna, several groups of cowherds quickly approached. Seeing him in such a state, they cried with pitiful voices. From far away in the village, Nanda and the other elder cowherds heard this terrible sound of crying. So too did Yashoda, ever affectionate to her son, and so did the other ladies and the maidservants. Together they all ran to that place, their feet stumbling on the path. Bewildered, they too cried, "Alas, alas." Then the cows and bulls and calves came there, and the black deer and the other animals. Seeing Krishna in that state, they wept in agony. The animals, all crying out in love, their faces drenched with floods of tears, approached Krishna one by one, and gently smelled and licked him again and again. Great numbers of birds flying overhead told also of their misery by making a tumultuous noise that sounded like people crying. And the immobile creatures in great pain within seemed suddenly to dry up. What more is there to say? All beings moving and non-moving were on the verge of death. As for me, I was drowning in a vast ocean of sorrow. Confused about what to do, severely tormented, I put Krishna's feet on my head and began profusely sobbing and lamenting. Then, Lord Balaram, Krishna's older brother, quickly arrived from some distant place, full of fear. White complexioned and arrayed in blue garments, he appeared charming, for he was the same age as Krishna and is nicely dressed. Lord Balabhadra, that most skillful of persons, cried for a moment, but then seemed to regain his composure and looked all around. With great care and attention, he made me hold his younger brother by the neck with my arms. He wiped Krishna's beautiful limbs clean with my hand and made me loudly call out to him with many plaintive cries. Then he made me lift Krishna up from the ground. Suddenly Krishna opened his eyes, sealed till then by a flood of tears. Seeing me, he joyfully embraced and kissed me. But then he looked around and became embarrassed. That best of lords took my hand in his own left lotus hand, and receiving me as a long-lost bosom friend, he asked me various questions. Then he greeted all the people of Braj and entered the best of cowherd villages with the gait of an elephant. Hare Krishna. Okay, that's nice, isn't it? Entering Vrindavan. So that's how one enters into Vrindavan. That's how we're meant to also enter into Vrindavan by grace of Krishna and Guru and Vaishnavas. And very interestingly, when Vaikuntha-Dutas talk to Gopkumar, they tell him that they're always overseeing the progress of Vaishnavas. In the purport, there's this guardian angel. Talk about guardian angels. That actually the Vaikuntha-Dutas are supervise and act like guardian angels to the progressive devotees, sadhakas, practicing devotees, always helping them and encouraging them in different ways. Hare Krishna. Was there meant to be some kind of prasadam?